Cristina Costantini, welcome to Latinas Power Talk. Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you? It's been
I
a
am so good.
crazy week, but
I bet you just came off this wonderful week of launching the Karol G Netflix documentary,
yes.
Mañana Fue Bonito. And
Fue muy bonito. And in Spanish, it's interesting. In Spanish, it's mañana fue muy bonito. In English, it's yesterday was beautiful. Or sorry, tomorrow was beautiful. I'm
tomorrow,
losing all of my tenses and days. Tomorrow was beautiful. Yeah.
so it launched yesterday. It came out
Mm-hmm.
yesterday on Netflix. And this morning I saw that it was number one in the US, number one in Spain, number one in a lot of different countries. How does that make you feel? I know you put in a lot of work into this. It was a whole process. Felicidades to start with, because it was amazing. But I want to hear from you. How does this all feel now that it's out and people can enjoy it?
Yeah, it's unreal. I mean, it's truly, we never expected this. I think it's the best, it's the only non English language documentary to ever reach number one in the US, which is, we'll have to fact check that, but I'm pretty sure that that's the case. And it feels crazy. I mean, it's really, I think, speaks to the power of Carol, and it really speaks to the power of Latinos. So that makes me, as a Latina woman, it makes me super proud. Just especially during this time when the community, I feel like, is underestimated and overlooked oftentimes, and the national conversation is not very kind to us. But to just show out this support and just show our sheer market power and our force in the US market, it's really makes me proud. So it's a joy. Yeah. I haven't really taken it in. I just learned this news like an hour ago. So
No, for sure. I bet you're like on this cloud of happiness, of just working so hard. So, you were the director of this documentary. So you were the one in charge of helping put all of this together. What was your first reaction when you first were approached by either Netflix or Karol G's team, and they said, "We want you to help us put this together and direct this documentary"?
well, Netflix didn't get involved until the project was further along, but Carol's team approached this production company called This Machine, and they who did the Billie Eilish doc, which is an incredible documentary. And somewhere along the line, someone decided that there should be a Latina involved, I think. And so they came to me, and I was a big fan of Carol's. I've been a fan of her since, Tusa days and before. And so when they called me, I said, absolutely, I would love to, but I have to ask my husband because I just had a baby. And leaving to tour for a year when you have a baby is not, when you're in a marriage, you're in a partnership. So I called my husband, and he's not Latino. So and it was before she kind of had this massive mañana será bonito kind of explosion in her career. So I was like, Karol G wants to do a documentary, should I do it? And like many Americans, he was like, who's Karol G? And I was like, ah. And and so many non-Latino Americans, I should say. And so we had a nanny at the time who was a Mexican American woman named Jasmine. And I said, I wasn't home at the time. I was like, just go ask Jasmine. Like, you don't know what you don't know. Just go ask Jasmine. I was kind of like annoyed. And Jasmine, like, basically fainted when Alfie asked her. And she said, she started crying, and she said, she has to do this documentary. You don't understand how important Carol is to us. And she was like, my hair is red right now because of it. Her song Ocean got me through some of the hardest times of my life. And I think my husband saw then what I kind of understood but didn't quite fully understand, which is that Carol has this power over this community of people, Latinas primarily, who have been underestimated, overlooked, heartbroken. She has this crazy power, and I think you see today in the numbers what I felt there and what we felt with Jasmine and so many other Latina fans was just this deep, deep loyalty. And it's been one of the greatest privileges of my life to be able to be on this tour with Carol and document this part of history, truly Latin history.
Historic. I mean, she was the first Latina to do a stadium tour, and she sold out. She
Hmm.
sold out. And I was watching the documentary last night, and I was in chills. Like I was like on the verge of tears because one, it was super inspiring as a Latina. And that's honestly the mission of this podcast, of why I started it, because I feel like there's power in seeing other women accomplish things that are unheard of sometimes, that, we've never seen Latinas in spaces like that. We haven't seen sometimes women in spaces like that,
Yeah.
much less Latinas in
Yeah.
spaces like that. And the fact that she was able to set her mind on something, and despite her team and everyone, as we hear in the documentary, being like, are you sure we shouldn't do this? Like, you just came off of another tour. Who's even going to go to a stadium to see you? She
Yeah.
made that happen.
Yeah.
And it's kudos to her to just pushing through everything and being so confident in what she wants to give her public, right? One thing that I can relate to, so one of the biggest parts of the documentary was the first show of her tour was in Las Vegas, and I was actually there. So it
Oh,
was interesting
cool.
to see that, a lot of things that she wanted to have happened didn't happen, and kind of get the behind the scenes of everything and the production side of what it takes to do like a whole world's tour of this magnitude, and see it from both sides. See it from her side, that there were a little hiccups and a lot of production things that might have not gone her way, but also experience it from the fan side of like, we enjoyed the concert, it was great, we didn't
Right.
even notice any of that stuff was
Nor
happening.
did I. I mean, I didn't know really as it was going on. I was like, why is she upset when she's getting off stage? I couldn't even believe that would be a mediocre performance for her, because for us, it looked like the best performance.
Out of this world.
Yeah.
Yes, one of the best concerts I've ever been to.
Right.
And I think you did a great job in kind of weaving in the emotional parts, but also the artist, because I feel like sometimes the artist has this persona, right? But we get deeper into who Karol G is. How did you and the team collaborate to shape that emotional arc of the story?
Yeah. I mean, it's a kind of classic hero's journey arc, which is the
Mhm.
most classic kind of storytelling device since the beginning of man, from like the Odyssey onwards. From the Bible, it's this story arc, which is you have a hero who goes through trials and tribulations and comes out the other side victorious. We didn't know that was going to be the story arc, but it was actually how it played out. It was not always easy for her. It was hard watching, just as a bystander, somebody trying to do something so monumental. So 90,000 people a night, and being one person and having that all on your shoulders, um, and having to perform at a level that is crazy. And then seeing her do it sick, she lost her voice at one point. She like, having to do that. If I have to go to the grocery store and I'm not feeling well, I like feel bad for myself. But then to see like, if she's not feeling well and there's no other Karol G, there's no substitute. She can't call in sick.
Right.
It's her. So I have just so much respect for just her ability to deal with all of that pressure. And I find it so human that the things that she's going through, we're all going through too. I think she's having self-doubts, she's having anxiety, she's a perfectionist, she's never happy with um some portion of what is happening. And I think that's in part what makes her so good, but it also can be a destructive force in her life, and I think you see that in the film.
For sure. I think we get a sense of how real she is, and how like she's facing things that we are too. Like, she talks about body image, and what she goes through, and all the criticism that she faces, even though she looks amazing, and
Right.
not being able to sleep. And I think one thing that resonated with me, that I almost broke down with last night watching it, was the part where she was like, I don't know why I'm not happy. Like, all these things are happening to me, like I wish and planned for, but for some reason I'm so stressed about like the things that I have to do, that I can enjoy the moment.
Yeah.
And I think that's just so, you executed the storyline so beautifully, and showed like the realness behind a big global celebrity that has so much influence. What was the most challenging scene or part of this documentary to shoot, and why?
Yeah, I think the hardest part of a film like this is, I've always made documentaries where the subjects, like, I'm the only thing that's going on in their day that day. So, they plan around us, we plan around them. What time are we going to meet? When are we going to break for lunch? Like it's what are we going to wear? It's like sometimes planned to a T. and we've been talking about it for months. This is a completely different kind of documentary. This is it's more like surfing, is my best analogy, where you have to be there and be prepared, but like some days no waves come and you're just going to be hanging out, like ready if Carol wants to shoot. And then other days, it's amazing and you don't know if you're leaving the house and you're going to be shooting all day for 14 hours with her and you're going to be getting amazing stuff, or you don't know if you get like an hour and then that's it. But that's very that I was trained as a journalist, and so this was a very different kind of filmmaking for me, of just
How
very
long,
yeah.
yeah. How long was that process? Like, how long were you right there next to her shooting everything that you needed to?
Yeah, we filmed over the course of 2 years with her, but I think all in all, our cameras were there for at least 50 days. And then when we weren't there, she has this whole entire team of amazing cinematographers who are with her, mostly capturing stuff for social media, but they were passing us interesting videos too. So Chris Cornejo, Felipe, there's like a whole squad of who you should follow on Instagram because they're very talented people who are filming her on day to day.
What do you hope audiences will take away from this documentary in particular?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is for a community that's, like I said, often overlooked, underestimated. People who are far away from their family members, people who are working really hard to send money home, people who are striving for some idea of the American dream while the country uh, is not a hospitable place for us. So I think the community needs hope more than it ever has. And I hope this brings a little bit of hope that like you just keep going one more day, and you can do it too. Like dreams are, the one thing that should never be justified or qualified. And yeah, Carol, you see what happens when Carol didn't let other people qualify her dreams for her. And we can all do big things too.
For sure.
We might not be the biggest pop stars in the world, but we all have our own versions of whatever it is.
But also, if you do have those dreams of being one of the biggest pop stars in the world, you can make it happen. Like it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter. And that's how the documentary opens up. She was like, I was a woman and I was coming from one of the places in the world that people didn't expect, someone to blossom as they did from that part of the world. So, looking back, and when you look back on this in like 10 years, what is one of the most special things that you will keep in your heart from this entire project?
I mean, I would say like the message of the documentary, which I think was the message of the project. It wasn't always easy. There were really hard moments in the filming, but now we have something beautiful. And I think, like Carol's career, it's a lesson in like sometimes the harder you have to work for things, the more gratifying they are in the end. Or like no big thing that you're trying to do comes without pain or is easy. And like, even now I think we have all these victorious pictures from premieres and all these, like, everybody's dressed up and it's glamorous and it's fun, but that's only the part for social media. What you don't see is like all the conversations and all of the difficulties that come along with doing something at this scale. So I guess I would want to remember that this wasn't easy, and that good things come with hard work and determination, and it's just about pushing through to the next step. And I think that has been a process for me of learning. Like it's about staying power. It's about solving one small problem at a time, and once you solve all of them, then you get to have that's when the best stuff comes.
So now I want to talk a little bit about you, because you did an amazing job with this documentary, but you have quite the resume, if I will say, of things that you have worked on. You briefly mentioned that you come from a journalism background. So how has that shaped your approach as a filmmaker? And also, what got you interested in pivoting to this side of your career?
Yeah, I mean, I come from everything I approach with like what's the deeper purpose? What's the meaning? Why do I want to be involved in this in like a civic sense? Like, who is it for? What does it say? What does it teach us? And so everything I do comes from some kind of motivation like that, some kind of ethical why was I put on earth, and some bigger um, idea of what matters. So so I used to do kind of investigative stuff, mostly about immigration, um, but reporting on the detention system, reporting on women in the detention system, pregnant women in the detention system, trans women in the detention system, um, drugs, sex trafficking, really dark, sad stuff. And at a certain point, that really started to take a toll on me. It felt very important, and it felt very like it was moving the needle in a way. It was very exciting. In fact, one of the producers on this, Chris Rios, and I used to report on detainees together, and that was an exciting time because we could actually make change with our journalism. But so that was where I started, and then after I would say 5 or 6 years of that kind of work, I was getting phone calls in the middle of the night from detainees who were desperate, and it was like taxing on my soul. And so I started to think about, like, why don't I just do one happy story? I'll just do one story about something happy, and then I'll come back to this. And so I was working at Univision at that time, Fusion, which is an ABC Univision joint venture called Fusion, where a lot of people actually got their start. A lot of Latinos in media got their start at this little company. And so I pitched this idea about the International High School Science Fair, which sounds like, yeah, on its face, it's like, sounds kind of nerdy, but it was a world that kind of raised me when I was in high school and middle school, and it taught me, it was kind of my lifeboat in some ways, and it justified my passions that, other than, just being a girl, oftentimes you're rewarded for beauty and not for intelligence. And so science fair was kind of this world that justified, it was cool to be smart, it was cool to have a project, and so I found it to be this thing that saved me, and a very inspirational world. And so I went back and I filmed a little sizzle reel. I'm giving you a really long answer. I hope that's okay.
That's great. Yeah.
I and then Univision agreed to fund it and to make a tiny little documentary. And so that documentary, which I co-directed with Darren Foster, ended up getting into Sundance, which is like,
Wow, that's
a huge
huge.
festival. And then it won the Festival Favorite Award, which means that it beat out 126 other films. And this was like my first movie. I was 26, 27. And that totally changed my career. National Geographic acquired it, and that changed the trajectory. Because not only did I think, like, wow, okay, I could actually do this as a career, but I also started to understand that that film, which was about women in science, and it was about immigration, and it was about so many other things I felt and cared deeply about. It went so much farther than some of my immigration reporting, and it affected people in a way I didn't quite understand it would.
Yeah.
Then I started thinking, okay, what other stories do I have in my life that I feel like are important and say something deeper, and they might be fun to watch, but they have a message to them, or they have something that I really care about. And so then I made Mucho Mucho Amor, which is about
Walter Mercado.
with Karim Tapsh and Alex Romero. So anyway, I started doing these happier stories that still had some seed of substance to them that I wanted to talk about. Yeah, that's a very long answer for you, but
No, I think you touched on a lot of points that I can personally relate to. Like, I also started in journalism, and that's what I went to school for.
yeah,
And you're right, like the amount of things that you see are so heavy.
yeah,
And that's one of the reasons why I personally didn't pursue that after college. Got
yeah,
my degree, and then after college, because it's just so hard. Like, you see so much bad stuff that is happening in the world.
yeah,
And I mean, we're human, and we kind of carry those emotions. Like, even though we clock out for the day or whatever,
yeah.
like, you're still thinking about that story that you just covered that was so tragic and traumatic. So, um, but it's interesting to hear how kind of you've allowed life to kind of just like, unfold in front of you and just take you on a new path. And
Yeah,
now, thankfully, like, this is your career of being a filmmaker. When
yeah.
you choose your next project, how does that look of like what you want to be
I
invested?
don't know. I'm trying to capture. I'm trying to do things that feel like really like I should be doing them, that they feel very like right for me. I always ask myself, like, why me and why this one, and why should it be me over other people? And is this somebody else's story to tell? Or and so I'm always asking myself those questions. But I don't know really what's next. I have a few things that are in development, but I care deeply about like the Latin story and about representing it. I think everybody in the white American space, everyone and their like dad and mom and cousin has a documentary. But what's exciting about the Latin American and the Latino space is there's so many stories to be told. There's so many icons. There's so many like underdogs. There's so many people. There's just so much. And so I'm really excited by that to tell parts of the Latino story for generations to come. And then, yeah, I care deeply about science. I care deeply about women. So there's so much. There's so much that
Want
but
to tap into?
I don't know what's next. Yeah.
Yes, that's so exciting though. Like not knowing what's next and just seeing where life unfolds and just what direction the wind takes you, como se dice. But what advice would you give aspiring Latina filmmakers who want to tap into this industry? Because there's so many stories to tell, and thankfully, like we're seeing more of it. Like, I think I read that Chalino Sanchez is going to have a series soon, and like the Walter Mercado one was amazing. We're seeing this documentary about Karol G. We saw like a J-Lo documentary. So like se están abriendo las puertas, and we're starting to share more of the stories that so need to be told. What advice would you give other Latina filmmakers?
Yeah, I mean, I would say just to start small, start practicing your skills. I think like journalism was how I practiced. And it's learn from people around you, seek out, I think people are the most important, like good partners, good mentors. You'll finding people who you think are smarter than you are and surround and stick with them and make them teach you what they know. That's been really important to me. Also, filmmaking is such a team sport that be good to people. I mean, Latinos are better to people than most people, but I do think it's like you have to be good. You have to be because the industries are small and you want people to want to work with you. It's like what we do is not life or death, and you want to be, yeah, you want to be kind, and I think to build a sustainable career. But yeah, practice your skills, find people you look up to, and make them teach you what they do. Ask for advice. Get coffee with people who you think are good, and you never know who's will help open doors for you. But it's go into it for the right reason. There's not a ton of money in the documentary space, but but it's a very fulfilling industry for sure.
For sure. Just be a nice person. And I have a friend who says, if you're the smartest person in the room, that's a problem,
Exactly.
And that has always stuck with me because I'm like, that's so true. There's so much to learn from anybody,
Exactly. Yeah,
Even
totally.
just getting cafecito and just tapping into their brain, and just getting advice, especially if you're starting in this career.
Yeah.
What do you hope to still accomplish in your career?
Oh, I don't know.
Are there any like dream projects that you're like, oh, this would be so fun to do? I want to tap into this.
I get so superstitious about saying I'm very
See?
bad at being vulnerable in this way. There's a lot of things I haven't done, and but what really excites me is learning new things. So like this was a great challenge because it's something I haven't done before, and I think when I feel a little bit scared of something, if like can I do that? That's when I'm having fun. So like um, I think learning new skill sets and continuing to grow is a great joy. I don't want to just do what I've already done, so trying to find different areas of Popstar took me out of my comfort zone. I also did an archival film this year that also took me out of my comfort zone. So just trying to expand in ways that push me and hopefully make good movies and good projects along the way. That's
No,
me.
you did, because I'm telling you, that documentary was amazing.
Yeah,
It
thank you.
really was. Like the cinematography, the editing, the
Oh,
storyline,
thank you.
it all just was so beautifully made. My boyfriend was watching it with me, and
Oh,
he goes,
really good.
shots. He's like, this is pretty good. He's like, he was just like sitting there with me, like one of the girly pops, just watching it
Oh,
too.
good.
Yeah,
I'm so glad. It's for the boys too. You
It's
know,
for
I think,
boys too, yes.
yeah,
It's
I
for
think,
anyone. I think regardless of gender, like anyone can feel inspired through this. And I think that's one of the most powerful things of making films is the message that you relate to other people. You know,
yeah,
there's a message in movies, documentaries, everything that uplifts, inspires, and makes other people feel seen and heard, you know, because they may be going through similar things. So I think you do that very well. I also saw the Walter Mercado one and I thought it was amazing too. So
thank you
you're
so much.
putting Latinas on the map in such a
Um,
bright area. So I am so proud of everything that you've done. Thank you
Thank
so
you so much. That means the world to me. I really, really appreciate it. I mean, I want everyone to see it, but I think for Latinas who are navigating these two cultures, navigating business, navigating love,
much navigating
we need
life.
it. We need hope. We need Carol's hope. So thank you so
We
much for
do.
watching.
We really do. Well, thank you. Where can people find you?
On Instagram, you can follow me at xtinatini. I used to use Twitter X, but I
X.
don't really anymore. But yeah, Instagram is probably the best. But
Sounds
thank
good.
you so much. It was such a pleasure to be on the
Thank
show.
you so much for your time. Thank you so much for everything. And thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Latinas Power Talk. I will see you here back next week on Wednesday. Bye.
Yay!